16th, 2022 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. We want to welcome those of you who are here at the Judicial Law Enforcement Center in Courtroom Division 2, and those folks joining us on Zoom. To get started, here's some information about our practices, especially public comment. Each action item on the agenda will offer the opportunity for relevant public comment about that topic. We ask that you wait until the agenda item you are here for comes up for discussion. Additionally, near the end of our meeting, we will invite folks to provide general public comment to the commission, which is a time for addressing issues not on today's agenda, but related to general county business. Public comment will not be recorded and shared on the county's YouTube site to ensure compliance with YouTube's content policies. To hear public comment, individuals can join us live on Zoom or here at the Judicial Law Enforcement Center. We will first call on folks who are here in person, and then we will turn to any online commenters who are here with us tonight. If you are on Zoom, please plan to use the raise your hand function when the time comes and listen for staff to call your name. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask everyone to give their full name and Douglas County residence for our meeting minutes. All public comments should be directed to the County Commission. We also reserve the right to mute and remove any speaker who is vulgar, rude, or inappropriate. The public should also know that comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not represent the views of the Douglas County government. If visual aids are used during the meeting, the presenter will share their screen. Please know that online participants will not be able to view them without a computer, smartphone, or tablet during tonight's meeting. Materials are published online for your reference. Lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on our YouTube page and website. We had a 4 o'clock work session. We have 4 items on our consent agenda. Then we'll do general public comment. We have 2 regular agenda items. Then we'll do appointments, commissioner and/or administrator miscellaneous for our meeting tonight. So we'll start with our consent agenda. Commissioner Reed is not here this evening, so I'll ask Commissioner Willie if there's anything she'd like to pull from the consent agenda for further conversation.
No, not at this time.
Okay. Ask if any member of the public has an consent agenda item they'd like to pull for consideration.
Nope.
No one here and no one online. So I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1, 2, 3, and 4. Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll move on to general public comment. Is there anyone here at the Judicial Law Enforcement Center who'd like to provide general public comment? All right, we'll start there. Regular agenda, and we'll start with a planning department item, which is to consider a conditional use permit, CUP 22-00161, for event center public assembly use at 1558 North 600 Road. I believe Kyle.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kyle Kobe with planning. So as just stated, this item, a conditional use permit for event center use, it's returning to you after being deferred at the October 19th, 2022 meeting to allow time to develop additional conditions of approval. Conditions indicated for addition at that time were hours of operation, the time limit of approval, and frequency of events. It wasn't officially included in the motion. There was some additional discussion related to an occupancy condition as well. So you'll note that that's been added to the conditions of approval. So included in the agenda packet is a memo which outlines the conditions that have been added to the conditional use permit, as well as information related to previous conditional use permits for event center types of uses. These were used as a starting point for developing the conditions associated with this conditional use permit before you tonight. Conditions 1 through 4 are similar to those included before. Conditions 1 and 2 are unchanged. The wording of condition 3 was adjusted as additional conditions related to hours of operation are included. Condition 4 was reworded to address the fact that the Board of Zoning Appeals has approved a variance related to gravel surfacing. So previously that was subject to an approval. This is, since it has been approved, we just reworded that to tie it to that case. Condition 5 was added to address occupancy standards. It's intended to tie the maximum occupancy to building code standards. Conditions 6 and 7 were added to address hours of operation. Conditions now state that if alcohol is being served, events must cease at 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, at 10 p.m. Friday through Saturday. And condition 7 states that outdoor activity shall cease by 10 p.m. Condition 8 states that a building permit is required for the event center use prior to commencement of operations. And then conditions 9 and 10 require administrative review of the conditional use permit in 5 years and an expiration date of 10 years. So that's just a brief summary of the conditions that were included in the update to address those that were indicated by the commission, and to try to tie them as closely to previous conditions that we've used for these types of uses before. That concludes my presentation. I'll be available to help answer any questions. Carl Bauer from Douglas County Zoning and Codes, I think, might be online as well. He will be available to help answer questions. I believe the applicant is participating online. Alan and or Beth Michaels, I think would be how they'd be showing up. So again, that concludes my presentation, and but I'm happy to answer any questions along the way.
Thank you, Kyle. I don't have any questions. Commissioner Willie, do you have any questions for staff?
Happy to hear from the applicant. I may have questions after that.
Okay. Alan and Betsy Michaels, is that right? Are they online?
Yeah, they're in the panel. Yep, there you go. Go ahead.
Hello, how are you? Thanks for
Good.
your stay. I'm Alan and Beth Michaels, 1558 North 600 Road. We're good with really most all of the conditions. I've talked to Kyle about. Hopefully I didn't lose you here. Talked to Kyle about. We do have a concern with one of them, in particular the requirement on the weekends, in particular Friday and Saturday, for whatever caterer is providing liquor for an events like a wedding. I don't think I've ever been to a wedding where they stopped serving alcohol at a wedding reception at 10 o'clock on a Friday or Saturday. That's a little concerning. I've been to weddings at, even Stony Point. I don't know of anybody that's had to stop with liquor at that time. While we're not really dedicated around liquor, certainly not a bar, that particular item is of concern. What we'd like to request is that be amended to allow liquor to go until 11 o'clock, with us closing the doors and everybody off the property by midnight, with the exception of a cleanup crew. Other than that, I think we're good with all the other conditions stated.
Thank you, Alan. And Beth, sorry, I got your name wrong earlier, Beth.
No problem.
Questions for the applicant? Commissioner Willie?
So first, a thank you to Kyle for pulling together Kyle and Carl likely for pulling together some of the information about what had happened with rural event centers and prior to that, with the George's Event Center being the most recent. And I think that's where the alcohol language came from. Of course, that was from a previous commission, but just kind of looking at what has been done in the past and what is appropriate. And I think the intention there was to keep people off the roads if by stopping alcohol serving sometime before the end of the event. I'm not at all surprised to hear that one you'll be flagged, but I'm also glad to hear that the others seem reasonable. Because that's one of the questions I always ask is, how do you feel about the conditions that we have? Because I know we started with none or nearly none, and then asked to add some. So I'll start with some of the easier ones, if that's okay. The indoor occupancy would limit for the barn, then would determine indoor occupancy for an event. Do you think this language gives you enough room to do outdoor events without being constrained by those numbers?
If I understand the condition, I mean, it's just basically saying for events that I'll use as an example, if we have a wedding that has more people in the wedding than the barn occupancy allows, you couldn't have an indoor, you couldn't have all those people in the barn. We're having had several private events out here that are our own. We know that barn gets really uncomfortable if you get even close to 100. So we're fine with that. We're not anticipating trying to put people in there in a way that would be unsafe and uncomfortable. I don't think that would be advantageous to us.
I can ask another question of either Kyle or Carl, who I think are both listening. Has there been any discussion? I assume it's the sheriff's department that would weigh in on hours of operation versus hours of liquor sales. Has there been any discussion around that? Or, and perhaps the question also for Commissioner Kelly, were you around when some of these discussions were had? And can you give us some context? If any of the above?
So I would say, I think I don't remember any discussion on changing the times that were listed in these conditions. I think we approved with the conditions listed. I may be recalling that incorrectly, but that's my recollection. I don't remember a lot of discussion around, there's some consistency here about Friday through Saturday, 8 to midnight. And Sunday through Thursday, 8 to 10. That's a consistent thing. When it comes to serving of alcohol, I just don't recall any conversation about why we had it end at 9. I don't know if that was something that was discussed at the Planning Commission, but that I don't remember us discussing it here.
Jill, do you have any memory of this? Because my understanding is that this was discussion that happened not at planning, but at the county commission. So it may predate both of us here.
I'm not remembering. I apologize. That may be a better question for Sarah. I apologize.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Well, we can always bug Kyle because he did briefly put his picture up. Do you have any thoughts to share about that, Kyle?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to do a similar thing there, but I wish I had more information about that, but I don't think I have anything worthwhile to contribute. I'll punt to Carl, maybe. I hate to hot potato to yet another person, but he might have additional info.
Again, I don't have too much more info. This is just consistent with some other applications that have been approved in the past, both for event centers and for agritourism. The main intent of having the alcohol stop at 10 is so that there's time for people to sober up before they get on the road.
And so agritourism has also seen, because we didn't ask for those to be pulled, because I know that's a different animal. I don't want to go down that road, but that is also something that's being written into agritourism rules.
I don't have the specific applications in front of me at the moment, but I do know there were some agritourism applications that have been approved with conditions that allowed for alcohol to end at 10, but events to continue slightly later.
So I'm also seeing on the George's Event Center that it was 10:30, so it was 9 p.m. when the closing was at 10 o'clock and 10:30 when the closing was at midnight. So that's a little bit more than what was offered here, which was the 10 p.m. So I'll look to Commissioner Kelly and see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that, I think that the applicant, I'm fine with it going till midnight on Friday and Saturday. That doesn't bother me really.
Hours of operation or hours of liquor?
Hours of operation. And same thing, Sunday through 10 o'clock, this says that all outdoor activities shall cease by 10 o'clock. And so I sort of want to, I think we need to make sure we have public comment before we have this conversation. Yeah. So, I maybe have a few more questions here before we dive into that. Yeah. And I guess that, first of all, I would ask, is there a difference between outdoor activity and, because I heard the applicant say close the doors, and there's really nothing in here about, it says outdoor activities should cease by 10 o'clock, but are all activities ceased by 10 o'clock? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Carl or Kyle, did you have something there?
The intent behind outdoor events ending earlier is so that there's not as much noise disturbance toward the neighbors. And that's also to be consistent with the noise code.
Okay. And so, but there's no, according to what's in the conditions right now, there's nothing that would permit them continuing activities as long as they like, because there's really no condition that says anything about when all activities need to cease. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is not a ultimate cap on any and all activities indoor out. There's the outdoor cap, and then there's the cap for alcohol. But no, there is not a all events must cease by this time. I think the intent is that if indoors and there's no alcohol, then that would be, I guess, considered differently, a little bit more flexibility on those kinds of things. But I mean, we can certainly add in a additional condition along those lines if so directed.
Okay, so let me go back to the applicant. Thank you for that, Kyle. Let me go back to the applicant. In some of the other ones that have been approved, hours of operation is what's listed: Sunday through Thursday, 8 to 10, and Friday through Saturday, 8 to midnight. Applicants, do you want to weigh in on that?
We don't have any concerns with that. Again, this
Okay.
event space is, 100 yards or less from our home. Our intent would be that the doors are closed and everybody's off the premises at midnight. It's closed, with the exception of allowing for cleanup crews to be here till 1 a.m. For any remaining cleanup if needed. But ideally, we'd like to have everybody off the property at midnight.
Thank you, Alan. That would be good based on past practice on Friday and Saturday.
Yes.
Sunday through Thursday, 10 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah, that's my bedtime.
Okay, that sounds good. We're making progress here. I appreciate it. Yeah. And then outdoor activities would need to cease at 10 o'clock based on the noise code. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so now we really got it down to alcohol, is my thinking, right? Okay,
Yes.
go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
I agree that hours of operation, so long as they work with the applicant, but also I know that one of the reasons we asked for something to be brought back in there is so that neighbors don't have to just rely on the noise ordinance and calling the sheriff. Like, there is another process that could be much more friendly to resolve issues. So just having it in there, even though the noise ordinance does still apply at 10, and this doesn't change what you'd be doing within that time, but it just codifies it and gives it neighbors another way to address something that before things escalate and they have to feel like they have to use the noise ordinance. So I also appreciate the applicant sticking with us as we kind of dig through some of these. So, and the alcohol one, Commissioner Kelly, did you want to take that?
Well, I want to have a discussion about it, but I don't have any questions about it. Maybe we do public comment first and then we can have some discussion. Is there anybody here at the Judicial Law Enforcement Center that'd like to provide public comment on this item? Jill, is there anyone online?
I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay. So to the applicants, usually we provide an opportunity for applicants to respond to public comments. We're not going to do that this time since there was no public comment. I have to tell you, this is really weird, like talking to the back of my head. So Commissioner Willie, I guess I sort of struggle with the idea of what is a public safety issue being in, that seems like it's something that needs to be in our code rather than conditionalizing it. I think, I guess I don't have any problem serving alcohol. If someone can have alcohol in their home until as long as they like, we're not really, if you're having a home party and people are leaving, there's no rule that says you got to serve your last glass of wine at 10 o'clock at your home party. So I don't know where that came from. We may have had, what is the cobwebs are kicking off the George Event Center a little bit. That was, I think it came back multiple times. It involved a pond and some other things. If there were other complications. So we'd have to go look at that. I'm fine with taking the alcohol part out of it and letting that be up to, I think that's more about the comfort level that the Michaels feel about serving. I think they would practice responsible serving, right? And have expectations for people leaving their space in a sober way. That would be good. But I don't know that we need to conditionalize it. So that's a bit of a concern for me. That's just where my mind's at right now. And you're welcome to try to change it.
Well, I'm coming to a similar place, but from a different angle. And that is that, first of all, I always appreciate event centers that are on hard surface roads. And that is one conversation we don't have to have is what does this do with traffic wise on the road? So North 600 Road being a county highway. Stony Point Hall is just a stone's throw as another event center from the one we're talking about, and they have no conditions, hardly any. They have a administrative review every 5 years. So I'm coming from the angle of we've got two businesses and we've placed a great many conditions on one. Now there should have been possibly more conditions placed on the other one, but we can't solve that. But we can perhaps, I like the reasons why we put in what we did for the hours of operation. I am comfortable removing the alcohol restriction, knowing that the neighboring event center does not have that. And I think you're right that that is a discussion that should be not just pegged on individual applications, but something that is applied if it needs to be. But that discussion needs to be, how do we equalize the playing field as opposed to picking, winners and losers among businesses, which always makes me uncomfortable.
Okay, so since we're seemingly in agreement to that, I'll make a recommendation to approve CUP 22-00161 for an event center and public assembly use at 1558 North 600 Road, subject to the conditions listed with the following changes. Condition 6 would be eliminated, and adding a condition for hours of operation Sunday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Friday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 midnight.
I would second that.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Again, thank you to the applicants
Yes,
for
thank
your
you.
patience with this process. We're working a few things out and I appreciate you helping us with it.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Alan and Beth, I do want to we went really fast there at the end, and I want to give you a second. Sometimes applicants just want to make sure you didn't have any questions there at the end.
No, again, just a big thank
Okay.
you. We're really looking forward to opening up a business here in Douglas County.
Yeah, and we're excited for you to open a business in Douglas County. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
To Kyle for taking this one.
All right. With that, we'll move on to the Douglas County Master Plan Review Update Judicial Law Enforcement Center Remodel Project. Hi, Jay.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jason Rashid, Director of Capital Projects. I think we also have with us online Jeff Lane from Trainer HL, which is the professional design group that we're kind of discussing with this agenda item. So if you were to have any questions of that group, I think you would be available for comment. This is actually a really old project. I think it started clear back in 2017 with a space needs assessment. Attached to the AIR are all of the space needs, the master plan that was generated from it originally back in 2019, pre-pandemic. So there's a lot of information here. Really what this agenda item is putting forth is that it's time to revisit that master plan as a step one, to be sure we're understanding the effects that that a pandemic have on how we deliver justice to communities and what that means maybe in the built form. And then phase two of that would potentially be implementation of those recommendations in terms of remodel additions, all these kind of various pieces. So what staff is recommending is that we did go through an interview process. We solicited or put an RFP out for professional design services. We had one response. It was Trainer HL. We assembled the interview committee. You can see all the various individual people there. We were trying to make sure we were covering as many groups in this building so that they were having input even up in the interview process for this. And it was their unanimous recommendation that we move forward with entering into some kind of contract with the RFP response from Trainer HL. So what staff really is requesting here as part of this agenda item is moving forward into a contracting stage with Trainer HL to do phase 1 master plan update and review of the master plan from 2019. At that point, you can see in the AIR, it's listed there what that phase 1 service is in terms of a fee, and that's the $73,250. The contract that would be written up in 2 phases. One would be this phase 1 master plan review and update, and then at that time, all that information gets presented back to the commission, and the Board of County Commissioners would need to approve moving forward into a phase 2, which is actual implementation and documentation and design of the findings of phase 1. That's really it in a nutshell. I think it's important to realize that this phase 1, it is a phased thing. So at any time, it's going to be back in front of the commission. So if phase 1 gets done, then approvals need to be had before moving into phase 2. So this is a significant commitment to the project, the phase 1 amount, but certainly it is, it won't be as large in terms of an amount as moving forward into phase 2. And so that's why we wanted to phase it in 2 steps and get approvals along the way. I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Jay. Questions, Commissioner Willie?
I know we have a new judge that's been ordered to the 7th District Court. Can you talk about that implication? Because that's new based on the last time we did a study for this.
That is probably one of the most impactful pieces that's driving this need now. Yes, we were awarded an additional judge. We had 1 judge retire, so we have 2 new judges actually coming on, if you look at it that way, but only 1 new judge, and we don't have a courtroom for them. And so currently we're remodeling a small portion of the 2nd floor of this space to kind of temporarily get us through. But that's the need for that additional district court is really what's driving a lot of this. One of the reasons we were wanting to revisit this master plan is that what came back in 2019 solved some of best practices for judicial buildings in terms of how all the various groups access court, but it didn't solve all of them. And so we're hoping there's some additional and new creative ideas out there that we could take advantage of by taking a second look. It's not just what happened in the pandemic. There's other people there, and the district court, additional district court, is driving the need.
If you don't mind, I'm kind of familiar with the study back from 2017 and on into the other phases, but can you talk just for the public that is listening about the safety issues and why there are so many things that need to be addressed about this building that would make it safer for people accessing the court? You don't have to say a lot, but that's part of what's driving this too.
I think traditionally in a courtroom, in a judicial building, you would see 3 distinct and separate paths for those to court: those in custody, the judiciary, and the public. Right now, currently, many of those groups share the same hallways, and that's not, when the building was built in the 70s, these kind of discussions and thoughts weren't really in place, and so we have the building that we have. But solving that issue is paramount in terms of any kind of implemented solution for this building. And so we'll be asking the design consultant to look pretty significantly at that piece of it. It's not just how do we stick another courtroom in here? It's how do we actually improve safety within the courthouse? We do have best practices in place for security checkpoint. Everybody comes in and out, you know, through one location in terms of the public, but that crossover of those various groups has not been solved yet.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I was just sort of taken aback by the fact that we only had one response to the RFP. Do you have any thought? I mean, Gould Evans did quite a bit of work on the initial plan. You know, I want to be clear, I'm not saying we should have got something from Gould Evans. They might have enough work right now, or I think they're called Multi-Studio now. Did you seek out and ask any of the potential responders, you know, why they didn't respond?
Yes, that group in particular.
Okay.
We did send out, as part of the bids and tenders solicitation process, it just kind of goes online and it's out there if they subscribe, if individual design firms would subscribe. So that they would have to find it out that way. But we also send out email invites to groups that we know who do these types of facilities, right? And so we sent out, I think it was in the neighborhood of 8 to 10, you know, individual emails requesting responses. And yes, and we only received one. I did call and discuss that with Multi-Studio, i.e. Gould Evans, who actually performed the space needs study and the original master plan. And they're basically so busy, they didn't think they could staff the project, was their response. I think they have a lot of other work potentially going in town. And so I think timing on that regard was not good for them. I respect that. If, you know, the worst thing you can do is take on work and not actually perform. And so to say that I called all of the other groups, I truly did not. Yes, I would love to have seen 4 or 5. I can tell you the selection committee after, and this was a really great group. They asked very difficult questions of this consultant, very pointed questions, and they have the answers. They are very well versed in this type of facility. They have a significant amount of body of work. They did Johnson counties, which is very close, very, very recently. And so, and any number of others, it's in their packet. They're a very qualified group. And I think the selection committee saw that and understood that. And so that's how we wound up with the unanimous recommendation to proceed with this group. Only got one, but we got a good one.
Thank you. Further questions?
Yeah.
Okay, open it up for public comment. There's no one here at the Judicial Law Enforcement Center. Anyone online? Okay.
No.
Go back to the commission for discussion. And I would just say, like, I'm disappointed we didn't get more than one. You always like to get more than one, but I'm confident in listening to Jay's response that due diligence was made to check with other potential, you know, the fact that it's a web-based posting, there's mailing, phone calls were made. You know, and I can understand there may just be a lot of work out there right now. And you know, I am aware that the trainer and the materials we received has a lot of experience in this area. So I'm confident in the work that they could do.
Yep. And I appreciate you asking that, because that was a good flag.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, I will move to authorize county staff to negotiate a professional design service contract with Trainer HL Architects for phase 1 service of the Douglas County Master Plan Review and Update / Judicial Law Enforcement Center remodel project in the amount of $73,250 with a phase 2 percentage based fee component to be negotiated at the time phase 2 services are approved to commence by the Board of County Commissioners.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That concludes our regular agenda. I want to check in with Jill one more time and see if Stephen Watts is available for public comment, if he's had a chance to maybe work out any kinks he had in his sound.
Mr. Watts, do you want to try one more time?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we are. All right. We'll move on to appointments. Commissioner Willie and I discussed this evening that there's only two commissioners. Commissioner Reed's gone this evening, and neither of us feel comfortable making any appointments with a mission commissioner. So we'll move on from appointments and go to commissioner or administrator miscellaneous items. And we usually start with Sarah's weekly memo, and I'll turn it over to Jill Joliker.
Commissioners, we didn't have a ton of information in that agreement. The one thing I will flag is that at this point, I believe last week we may have indicated that there was going to be a study session with Bert Nash on their supportive housing project. On the 30th, we've pulled that at this time. Conversations have been, are changing with that project, and we want to make sure that when we have a conversation with them, there's some more viability as it relates to a site. Beyond that, I'm happy to stand for any questions. I know that there was a link in there to a survey that our criminal justice coordinator has open, looking for feedback that I think is important to flag for the public, to provide some feedback on. And I'm happy to stand for any questions on anything there.
Is there someplace easier for the public to find that link? Is it available other places? But the end of our packet is a hard place for people to find things.
I believe it's on our website. But let me double check real quick.
I think it was on social media. It was one place I saw it this week. As much as I love social.
It is, yeah, it's on, Carrie's saying it's on the website. Katie, did you want to, I know Katie Fitzgerald is in the, yeah, I'm gonna let Katie talk real quick and let her highlight that. Go ahead, Katie. Thanks.
Hi, commissioners. Yes, it is. The link to the survey for the CJCC is on the CJCC homepage on the county's website. It's kind of front and center. And the it is on our social media pages as well. Carrie did some Facebook posts and Twitter posts. I have seen some of our partners share that as well on their Twitter feeds. And I know both the Lawrence Times and the Lawrence Journal World have also posted those recently in the last couple of days on their pages. So, and we will probably, I know I'll be sending out some reminder emails to folks to just encourage as much participation as possible. The survey opened on Monday, November 14th, and it will be closing at midnight on November 30th. So we're hoping to get a lot of responses, and I would imagine that Carrie will also be helping me too, sending out some other social media posts to the public as well.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate that. Any other questions on the memo?
I know I'm getting quite a few questions from people about when will we be able to hold public meetings about the 5 commission district maps. And I know there's been work to kind of set some dates. We don't have that yet, or don't have it in the memo yet, but I just want to make sure that people know that we're working on that. If there's anything you can share.
Yeah, I think December 1st is looking like the date, and it will be at 6:30. Carrie and I had a quick huddle on that today. That is, and Carrie, feel free to jump in here, but we're going to move forward in earnest on planning the specifics of that. I believe it's going to be at the Flory Meeting Hall. But yeah, we're moving forward. December 1st, 6:30, Flory Meeting Hall. That is the tentative plan.
Thank you for sharing that. And the Flory Meeting Hall is at the Douglas County Fairgrounds.
Correct. I apologize. Yeah.
Thank you. I will share that. I know if Carrie can push that on social media too. There are a lot of people looking for it.
Yeah, 100%. We'll get that out as soon as possible.
I'd just like to comment a little bit on Mr. Watt's comments, and I hope he's still online. If not, I'll send him an email too. But we do recognize the Douglas County Commission did a supportive housing survey, and a large number of seniors needing supportive housing was identified in that needs assessment. So that is something we're thinking about and concerned about. We did improve some ARPA projects that included senior housing. The need is greater than the number of projects that we approved. And so his comments are appreciated, and I'm glad he's drawing our attention to it. We do, as a county commission and as county government, approach our work in housing a little differently than the city does. That doesn't mean one is right and one is wrong. It's just a little different. And I know Commissioner Reed is aware of some of the concerns that Mr. Watts shared with us this evening, but I just wanted to recognize that is a concern. It's I think our largest group. Am I right on that, Jill?
There's a good amount of overlap. You've seen seniors fall into several of those categories. The biggest one might be the IDD, but there's a ton of overlap. And I would say that the project that the county commission approved with ARPA funds that has the highest potential to serve that population is the Clinton Place expansion at being led by the Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority.
All right. So appreciate that, Mr. Watts. Just wanted to take a little bit of time to recognize that, and appreciate you taking the time to hang with us here to provide your comments.
I tag along with that too, that the owner occupied housing, it has been a harder target to meet, or to find ways to meet it in a meaningful way other than, individual homes one at a time, which is hard for the county to prioritize in terms of not choosing one over another. So I just recognize that what he's saying is correct, that owner occupied housing is a need, but it is harder to find good ways to tackle that. But I think those discussions should be ongoing, and I'm glad he flagged it.
Yeah, and I'd also say that, we like to remind the community of the investment that the county's made in homelessness prevention and housing stabilization. I would say that the Housing Stabilization Collaborative has sets aside priority funding in its monthly caps for its monthly funds for our senior population, recognizing that they are one of the more vulnerable populations.
Thank you, Jill. Commissioner Willie, anything else?
Should flag that there is no meeting next week for the
Thank you.
23rd.
Yes, there's no meeting on the 23rd. Our next meeting will be November 30th, and we'll follow up at 6:30 at the Flory Meeting Hall at the Douglas County Fairgrounds for a discussion about 5 districts. So thank you all for tuning in tonight, and we are adjourned.